Hi, I'm Allie Ebert, and this is going to be my third and final speech for my public speaking course. It is a special occasion speech, and I am going to be presenting at a public conference in Milwaukee on desegregation. This was a movement, Val Phillips said, and a movement requires you and you and you, and there cannot be a movement without the people. Hi, I'm Allie Ebert, and today I would like to share with you all the people who have shaped the Milwaukee civil rights movement and their achievements in our city's history. I'm currently attending University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and I'm seeking a certificate in race relations to supplement my degree in education. I'm also currently in a course on the Milwaukee community, and I would like to share with you some of that knowledge. The Milwaukee civil rights era and its leaders in the 1960s created enormous amounts of change locally and nationally that should be recognized. Milwaukee became the center of the civil rights movement in the North. Here, prominent figures such as Val Phillips, Father James Gropey, and comedian Dick Gregory led the open housing campaign whose success should be admired. Today, I would like to bring attention to the Milwaukee movement and commend its prominent figures that led the open housing campaign. Val Phillips, a female African-American from Milwaukee, became an influential voice in the national and local movement for fair housing in the 1960s and was the first woman and African-American elected onto the Milwaukee Common Council. During the 60s and 70s, Milwaukee was a hub for African-American migration post-World War II and Great Depression. But race relations became a huge issue that dominated the era with segregated schools and segregated housing. The hardships of the Great Depression brought struggles for adequate housing, and white landlords created racial inequality by denying African Americans housing in white neighborhoods. Val Phillips was the first African American woman to graduate from the University of Wisconsin-Madison Law School in 1951 and ran for a seat on the Milwaukee Common Council so that she could help desegregate our city and pass her proposed fair housing law. The Fair Housing Law of 1962 would make it illegal not to rent to Black people. However, it was voted down again and again. This went on for 6 years, while Val Phillips participated in nonviolent protests in Milwaukee against discrimination. Another prominent figure in the Milwaukee movement was Father James Gropey. He was a huge advocate for equality in Milwaukee and advised and mentored the NAACP Youth Council throughout the open housing campaign, including organizing the 200 Nights of Marching. Father Gropey was a Catholic priest from Green Bay, Wisconsin, who became deeply involved in the Milwaukee civil rights movement. In 1965, he became the advisor to the NAACP Youth Council, whose organization led the 200 Nights of Marching on Milwaukee to rally for the open housing law that Val Phillips had created to be passed. Father Gropey, although white, publicly led the Milwaukee movement and was fully committed to the cause of Black power. He believed in nonviolence and equality, and these values were mirrored throughout the movement. Father Gropey led 200 Nights of Marching from the inner core of Milwaukee across the 16th Street Bridge until finally in 1968, the Fair Housing Law that had been written 6 years ago by Val Phillips was passed. Another leader in the Milwaukee civil rights movement was comedian Dick Gregory, whose alliance to the civil rights movement in Milwaukee, specifically his leadership in the 200 Nights of Marching, brought national attention and support to the Milwaukee movement. Dick Gregory marched alongside Val Phillips and Father Gropey throughout the open housing campaign. He became involved in the struggle for civil rights in Milwaukee in order to bring attention to the city's struggles. Not only did he support the marching for open housing, but he brought the attention that we needed to the civil rights issue of segregation in Milwaukee. During his participation in the Milwaukee demonstrations, he claimed that Black power adherents nationwide were becoming less anti-white because of the Milwaukee movement, and explained, What we're doing in Milwaukee is convincing a lot of cats that Black nationalism is not a color, it's an attitude. Despite the achievements of the Milwaukee Open Housing Campaign, Milwaukee continues to be one of the most segregated cities in the nation. As a result, to persevere and share the Northern Movement's history requires recognizing the leaders of the movement, as well as teaching and discussing about the racial struggle. I present to you this monument in recognition of the Milwaukee Civil Rights Movement and its leaders. It will be constructed on the 16th Street Bridge in recognition of the 200 nights of marching on Milwaukee that led to the passing of the open housing law. This monument should be a reminder of our history and a remnant of our future. With all this being said, I hope that each and every one of you fails to forget the struggle for equality in Milwaukee during this era and continues to advocate for tolerance, acceptance, and fairness in this great city. The Milwaukee Civil Rights Movement and its leaders created drastic changes locally and nationally that should not be forgotten. Val Phillips, Father James Gropey, and comedian Dick Gregory all became prominent figures of the civil rights movement in the North. Father Gropey and Dick Gregory led the 200 nights of marching to finally get Phillips' fair housing law passed. Their activism is heroic and should be a reminder of the struggles that African Americans continue to face. With all this being said, I hope that we can continue to work together on a unified movement for equality in Milwaukee. Thank you.